I received an email from my deceased spouse, but they were still alive. I'll never forget the moment I received the email. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon, and I was at my office trying to keep my mind occupied with work. It had been almost a year since Nathan, my husband, passed away. The pain was still fresh, but it had become easier to cope with day by day. The first few months had been unbearable, sleepless nights, an endless stream of tears, and a constant ache in my chest. But I was learning how to live without him. Slowly, but surely, I was adjusting to life without the person I thought I would spend forever with. I had been trying to sort through his things in the spare bedroom, taking my time with his belongings, his clothes, his books, his old guitar that he hardly played anymore. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was something I had to do. There were still days when it felt like he would walk through the door any minute, and I'd see that goofy smile of his that had always made me laugh. But then, reality would hit, and I would remember that he was gone. He was never coming back. The email came while I was sitting at my desk. It was a simple notification, a new message in my inbox. I didn't recognize the email address, but that wasn't unusual. I'd gotten plenty of random messages over the last year, mostly junk or reminders from companies Nathan had been involved with before his death. I opened the message absent-mindedly, expecting it to be yet another one of those automated reminders. But as soon as I saw the subject line, I froze. "I'm still here." The email wasn't much longer than that. In fact, it was only a few sentences long. "I'm still here. I know you think I'm gone, but I'm not. I'll explain everything soon. Please trust me. I love you and I always will." There was no signature, no sender name, just those few cryptic sentences that sent a chill down my spine. I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, unable to move or speak. My heart was racing in my chest, and my fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to do next. The first thing that struck me was the unmistakable feeling of dread creeping up my spine. The email had come from a personal address I knew well. It was Nathan's. The very same email he had used for everything. But that couldn't be possible. Nathan was dead. He had been for almost a year, ever since that car accident that took him away from me so suddenly. I'd attended his funeral, I'd said my goodbyes, and I had mourned him the best way I knew how. But now, I was staring at an email from him, telling me that he was still alive. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the fog of confusion that had overtaken my mind. I read the email again, hoping that I had misinterpreted it, but the words were the same. "I'm still here." The logical part of my brain screamed that it couldn't be real, that it was some kind of sick joke or a scam. But another part of me, the part that had loved Nathan with all of my heart, couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that there was something more to this, something that I didn't understand. I clicked the sender's name, bringing up the details of the email address. It was unmistakably his. The address had been the same since we first met years ago. It was his personal address, not one he had used for work or anything else. But how could it be? How could he still be sending me messages if he was dead? My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was reading. There were 1,000 questions bouncing around in my head, each one more urgent than the last. What did this mean? How was this possible? And most importantly, what was happening to me? I wasn't someone who believed in ghosts or the supernatural, but this was starting to feel like something beyond reason. I quickly opened my phone and dialed my best friend, Olivia. She had been my rock through all of this, the one person who had helped me pick up the pieces of my shattered life after Nathan's death. She picked up after the second ring. "Hey, what's up?" she asked, her voice light and casual, but I could hear the concern in it as soon as I spoke. "Olivia, you're not going to believe this," I said, my voice trembling. "I just got an email from Nathan." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear Olivia's confusion through the phone. "Wait, what? You mean like from his old email address?" she asked slowly. "Yes, I don't know what to think. It's so strange. He's dead, Olivia. I was there. I saw him in that casket. But this email says that he's still here, that he's alive." There was a soft sigh, and then Olivia's voice became more serious. "All right, listen. I know this is hard, but it could just be some kind of weird glitch or a prank. Maybe someone has hacked his old email account and is messing with you." I knew she was trying to rationalize it, to offer some comfort, but deep down, I knew this wasn't a prank. I could feel it. I don't think so. The email, it was him, Olivia. It felt like him. Well, what does the email say exactly? She asked, her tone now a little more concerned. I repeated the words to her, telling her everything. How it said Nathan was still here, how it mentioned that he'd explain everything soon, and how it ended with a simple, I love you. Olivia was quiet for a moment. All right, maybe we should try something, she said, her voice steadier now. Try replying to the email, see what happens. If it's really him, then maybe he'll respond. But if it's a hack or a scam, they'll probably stop replying. It wasn't the most comforting suggestion, but it was the only one I had. And so, with a trembling hand, I opened a new message to Nathan's email address. Nathan, is this really you? I don't know how this is possible, but if it is, please tell me what happened. Where are you? Why did you leave me? I hesitated for a moment, my finger hovering over the send button before I clicked it. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I immediately regretted pressing it. What if I had made a mistake? What if this was all just some sick joke? But then again, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know the truth. I sat there, staring at my phone, willing it to buzz, waiting for some kind of reply. But as the minutes stretched on, nothing happened. No reply, no notification, just the empty silence of the room. I felt foolish. Maybe Olivia was right. Maybe it was just a scam, some cruel hoax designed to play with my emotions. But deep down, there was a part of me that couldn't let go. A part of me that wanted to believe it was Nathan. That somehow he had found a way back to me. I kept looking at the email, waiting for it to come alive again, but the inbox remained empty. That night, I went to bed with a restless mind, haunted by the strange email and the endless questions it raised. Had Nathan somehow faked his death? Was there a logical explanation I just couldn't see? Or was something else at play here? Something beyond explanation, beyond reason? The next morning, as soon as I woke up, I checked my phone. I had an email. My heart leapt in my chest as I saw the sender's name. It was from Nathan. And this time, he had responded. I stared at the email on my phone for what felt like an eternity. The subject line was simple, almost too normal. I'm sorry. My heart pounded in my chest as I clicked on the message. It wasn't just a notification on my screen. It felt like a doorway opening into something I didn't understand, something that could either heal or break me. I opened the message with trembling fingers, and this is what it said. I know you don't understand, and I don't expect you to, but it is really me. I am still alive, and I need you to listen carefully, Alex, because time is running out. I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but the most important thing I can say right now is that I'm still here. I've been forced into hiding, and for your safety, I can't explain everything yet. But I promise I will. You deserve to know the truth. Just trust me for a little longer, okay? It ended with a signature, Nathan. I read it over and over, trying to find some semblance of reality in those words. The logical part of my brain screamed that this wasn't possible. Nathan was dead. I had seen his body, touched his cold skin, felt the weight of my grief as I said goodbye at his funeral. I hadn't imagined those things. I had mourned him with every fiber of my being. So how could this be real? But the part of me that had loved him, the part that couldn't bear the thought of losing him forever, was trying to cling to hope. It was the same part that made me believe in fairy tales when I was younger. It was a part of me that refused to accept the finality of his death, a part of me that now wanted to reach out and grab onto the possibility, no matter how impossible it seemed. The fact that I had just received an email from him, a personal message that felt so real, was shaking me to my core. This wasn't some random email address, some scam from the internet. It was his email, his words, and I knew it. I quickly replied, the words tumbling out in a frantic rush, too fast for my brain to even process. How is this possible? Nathan, where are you? Why didn't you come back sooner? What happened? I need to know, please just tell me everything. I hit send almost immediately, not caring that I hadn't even proofread the message. It was as if I needed to reach him as quickly as possible, like if I didn't send it in that moment, something irreversible would happen. My fingers hovered over my phone, waiting for a response, but for a while, nothing came. I tried to keep myself busy, packing the living room as I thought about the implications of everything. What if this was all some kind of elaborate joke? What if someone had hacked Nathan's account? But no, there was something about it. The way the message was written, the way it spoke directly to me, that made me feel like it was real. Then, about 10 minutes later, the screen lit up again. Another email from Nathan. "I'm sorry for the delay. I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I can't hide it anymore. I've been hiding for the last year and not by choice. The people I'm running from, they know I've reached out to you, but I need you to stay calm and listen carefully. Everything you think you know about my death is a lie. I didn't die in the accident, Alex. I was taken." I stopped breathing. They made it look like I was dead. They staged the crash, they used my identity, and they made sure no one would ever know the truth. It's a long story, one that's too dangerous to explain in an email. But I swear to you, I'm not dead. And if I'm ever going to be able to come home, we need to be careful. They're watching us. They've been watching you too, since I reached out. There it was, the bombshell. The words I'd never imagined hearing. Nathan wasn't dead. He hadn't died in the car accident. He had been taken by someone. Someone powerful enough to make him disappear, to manipulate the truth and erase his existence from my life. I know this is a lot to take in, and I understand if you don't believe me. But please, I need you to trust me, Alex. I will explain everything when I can. Just know that I love you. I always have, and I always will. The email ended, and the weight of his words hit me all at once. I sat down hard on the couch, feeling my breath come in shallow gasps. The world around me felt like it was spinning out of control. Nathan was alive, but hiding. And he had been taken. What did that mean? Who had taken him? Why? How could something like this happen without anyone knowing? I stared at the email for a long time, rereading the sentences, trying to make sense of it all. My mind raced with questions that had no answers. My heart ached with the desire to believe him. But then, doubt crept in. Could this really be happening? Could Nathan have faked his death? Could he have been held captive for all this time? The more I thought about it, the less it seemed like a possibility. The idea that my husband had been alive all this time, living in secret, hiding from some mysterious group, it was too much to comprehend. My first instinct was to pick up the phone and call him, to hear his voice, to make sure that this wasn't some sick prank. But I knew that wasn't possible. He couldn't call me. Not yet. I had no idea what kind of danger he was in or what kind of people he was dealing with. I couldn't risk bringing attention to him by reaching out in ways that might alert whoever had taken him. I paced back and forth, trying to think. There had to be some way to figure this out. But what could I do? How could I find him when he was so carefully hidden? How could I trust this email when everything I had known for the last year told me that he was gone? The room felt colder now, the weight of his words pressing down on me. I looked at the clock. It was nearly midnight. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what Nathan had said. I tried to call Olivia again, but I couldn't bring myself to leave her a voicemail. What would I even say? "Hey, my husband is alive and he's been secretly hiding for the past year, but we can't talk about it because it's dangerous." It sounded insane. It felt insane. But what if it was? What if it was true? What if he was out there somewhere and I had to find him? And what about the people who had taken him? What kind of power did they have, and how far would they go to keep him hidden? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I couldn't sit idly by and hope for some miracle. I had to do something. I had to find him. I had to believe him, even if it meant stepping into a world of shadows and danger. I grabbed my phone again, typing out a quick reply to Nathan's email. "I believe you. I don't know what's happening, but I trust you. Please, when you can, tell me how to help. I'm here. I love you." I hit send, my fingers trembling as I waited. But I knew it was a first step. A first step toward finding him, toward uncovering the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be. The minutes ticked by slowly, and as the hours wore on, I found myself more determined than ever. Nathan was alive, and no matter what it took, I was going to find him. The next few days passed in a blur. I had no idea how to process what had happened, the email, the revelation, the overwhelming flood of emotions that had gripped me. Everything I thought I knew about my life was slowly slipping through my fingers like sand. Nathan was alive. The man I had mourned for an entire year, the man who had been my husband, was alive and hiding from something or someone, and I didn't know how to find him. The logical part of my brain told me to be cautious. It warned me that this could be some kind of elaborate hoax, but I couldn't ignore the connection I felt when I read his words. There was something in his tone, something in the way he wrote, that felt so incredibly real, so undeniably Nathan. How could I ignore that? I spent hours reading and rereading the emails he had sent. The subject lines, the phrases, the small details that only he would know, everything added up. But then there were the things he didn't say, the gaps in his explanations, the things that still didn't make sense. Why didn't he contact me earlier? Why didn't he come back sooner? There were too many questions and too few answers, and that made me uneasy. Despite the fear, despite the confusion, I couldn't stop myself from wanting to know more. I had to believe him, right? After all, who would go through the trouble of faking an email like that? But as the days wore on, a creeping sense of dread started to take over. If Nathan was truly alive, what kind of danger was he in? What was it that had forced him into hiding? And who were these people he mentioned in his emails, the ones who had made him disappear? It was on the 4th day after the email that I received another message. It came in the middle of the night, just as I had finally begun to drift into an uneasy sleep. I had barely gotten any rest in the past few days, my mind racing with thoughts of Nathan, of how he was, what he was doing, and whether he was really alive. I felt like I was losing my grip on everything. But when my phone buzzed on the nightstand, I jumped out of bed, my heart racing. The subject line was simple: "They're watching you." My hands shook as I opened the message. The text was short, but it packed an emotional punch. "I can't contact you directly for much longer. They know I'm reaching out and they're getting closer. You need to be careful. Don't trust anyone right now. Everything is not as it seems. I'll explain soon, but for now, you need to stay safe. If you feel like something is off, it probably is. I love you, Alex. Please be careful." I read it over and over again, my mind reeling. Who were they? And why was Nathan so sure that someone was watching me? The hair on the back of my neck stood up as I looked around my bedroom, suddenly feeling vulnerable, exposed. I wasn't sure if it was my anxiety playing tricks on me, or if there was something more to it, something that Nathan knew that I didn't. I thought about going to the police, but my gut told me that wouldn't be enough. Nathan had warned me not to trust anyone, and part of me realized that whatever was going on, it was far beyond what I could handle on my own. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of the situation, but the reality was I had no answers, only more questions. The next day, I met with Olivia. She had been my confidant through all of this, and I knew she would listen to me, even though I was afraid she'd think I was losing my mind. I had to tell her everything. I needed her support. So I called her, my voice frantic. "Olivia, please, I need to talk to you," I said, almost pleading. I don't know what's going on, I'm scared." Hey, calm down," Olivia said softly over the phone, her voice full of concern. "What's happening?" I quickly recounted the emails I had received from Nathan, the cryptic messages, the warnings. I told her everything I could, leaving out nothing, knowing that if I didn't tell her, I would burst. I couldn't keep this inside any longer. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear Olivia taking a deep breath. "Alex, this is insane. You're telling me that Nathan is still alive, that he faked his death, and that he's been in hiding for a year. I don't know what to say." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I don't know what to think either, but it feels so real, Liv. It feels like him. The way he writes, the way he says things, it's him. Olivia let out a shaky breath. "Okay, but what do you want me to do? I'm not saying I don't believe you, I'm just trying to process this." "I don't know, I can't keep pretending that everything is normal anymore. He's alive, and I need to find him. I need to know what happened to him. I need to know why he disappeared." Her voice softened. "Alex, I know this is hard, but I think you need to be careful. I don't know who they are, but Nathan said they're watching you. That's not something to take lightly." I know, I said, my voice trembling. "I don't know who to trust anymore. He said not to trust anyone, not even the police. What am I supposed to do?" Olivia sighed. "You don't have to do this alone. But whatever you do, don't make any rash decisions. You need to be smart about this. If Nathan is telling the truth, then he's in danger and so are you." I felt a small flicker of relief knowing that Olivia was on my side, but the fear still gnawed at me. What if we were in over our heads? What if I was making a mistake by believing everything Nathan had said? We decided that the best course of action was to keep the situation between us for the time being. I wasn't ready to involve anyone else. Not yet. I couldn't risk putting more people in danger. Olivia suggested that I start by gathering more information, researching everything I could about Nathan's supposed death, and any clues I could find that might explain the bizarre circumstances surrounding it. We agreed to meet again in a few days to see if I had made any progress. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on anything else. My mind was consumed by the idea of Nathan still being out there, alive but hidden, and the realization that there were forces working against us, watching us from the shadows. I spent hours combing through old records, news articles about the car accident that had supposedly taken Nathan's life, trying to find any detail that didn't add up. But the more I dug, the more I realized how meticulously everything had been arranged. The accident had seemed so real at the time. The official reports, the medical records, the funeral, everything had fit perfectly into the story of his death. It was as if someone had planned it all. That night, as I sat in the silence of my apartment, I received another email from Nathan. This time it was different. It was more urgent, more desperate. "Alex, I don't have much time. They've found out I'm reaching out. I'm running out of options, but I'm so close to escaping. I need you to trust me. Please, do not tell anyone about this. Don't tell Olivia. Don't go to the police. If you do, everything will fall apart. Just wait. I'll find a way to get to you. I promise." I read it over and over, trying to make sense of his words, but all I could feel was a growing sense of dread. It was real. Whatever Nathan was involved in, whatever he was running from, it was bigger than both of us. And the more I tried to understand it, the more I realized that I was in over my head. I was no longer just trying to find my husband. I was trying to survive a world I never knew existed, one that was full of secrets, lies, and people willing to do anything to keep their power. And for the first time since Nathan's death, I realized that finding him might just be the beginning of something much darker. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my thoughts swirled back to the emails, the cryptic words Nathan had written, the promise that he was still alive, that he had been forced into hiding. It was like a poison coursing through my veins, an obsession I couldn't shake. I had to understand it all. I had to believe it was real, no matter how far-fetched it seemed. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how dangerous this was. I was being pulled into something much bigger than I could comprehend, and now there was no turning back. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of urgency I hadn't felt before. I had received Nathan's email late last night, and it had left me restless and anxious. It was clear that something was happening, something that I didn't fully understand. The more I tried to convince myself that this was all some elaborate hoax, the more I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling deep inside me that Nathan was alive and needed me. I spent the morning trying to calm myself, trying to distract my thoughts by organizing the apartment, but nothing felt right. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting someone to show up at the door, expecting everything to come crashing down. I wasn't sure what I was afraid of, but I knew that something was about to happen, something I wasn't prepared for. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't wait any longer. I had to act. The only way I was going to get answers was to go to the place where it all started, the car accident. I had to see it for myself, to look at the scene that had taken my husband's life and figure out if it had been staged, if Nathan's death had been a lie. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment without thinking. The ride was a blur. The landscape outside the window passed by, but I wasn't really seeing it. My mind was consumed with questions, with fear, with the urgency to get to the place that might hold the key to everything. The farther I drove, the more my anxiety intensified. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to turn around, to forget it all and just move on with my life. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't. I had to know the truth. When I finally reached the site of the crash, I felt like I was walking into a nightmare. The place looked completely different now, almost like it had been erased from memory. The wreckage from the accident had been cleared years ago, the road repaired. There was nothing left to indicate that anything had happened here. No markers, no signs, just an empty stretch of road, like nothing had ever been out of place. But I knew that was a lie. I pulled over to the side of the road and got out of the car. The air was still and cold, and a sense of unease settled over me. I walked slowly, my footsteps echoing in the silence, until I reached the spot where the crash had happened. I looked around, but there was nothing. Just a quiet road with nothing to remind me of the event that had changed my life forever. Then I remembered something. Nathan's car had been found overturned, smashed into a tree. But there was something off about the way the wreck had been reported. I'd always thought it was strange that the police had never found a second person involved, never questioned whether the crash had been accidental or intentional. It had been so clean, so final, so controlled, almost like it had been set up to look like a tragic accident. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I recalled the words Nathan had written to me in his email. I was taken. They made it look like I was dead. What if it hadn't been an accident at all? What if someone had deliberately staged his death? I felt the weight of his absence pressing on me as I stood there, unable to move. The silence around me felt suffocating. I had no idea what I was doing here, no clear plan, just a burning need to uncover the truth. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, hoping to find something that could explain all of this. I opened Nathan's old messages, the ones we had sent each other before the accident, looking for clues. I needed something, anything, that could lead me to the truth. But there was nothing new, just the same texts, the same conversations, the same lies. I looked around again, my mind racing. What was I missing? Was this really just a random accident, or had it been carefully orchestrated, just as Nathan had said? Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my hand. I jumped, startled, and looked at the screen. A new email from Nathan. "Alex, don't go to the crash site. They're watching you. It's too late now, but you need to get away. Don't trust anyone. I know you're trying to figure this out, but you're in too deep. Please, please don't do this." I stared at the words, my heart pounding. They're watching you. I had barely finished reading the email when I heard the sound of a car engine approaching. I froze, panic rising in my chest. My first instinct was to run, to get out of sight, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen, the weight of the situation paralyzing me. The car came closer, its engine growling louder as it slowed down. A black SUV pulled up next to me, the windows tinted so dark that I couldn't see inside. The vehicle stopped, and I held my breath, hoping whoever it was would just drive by. But instead, the window rolled down slowly, revealing a man inside. He was wearing sunglasses, his face hidden in the shadows of the car. "You shouldn't be here," the man said, his voice low and menacing. I stepped back, my instincts screaming at me to run, but I didn't know where to go. This was it, the moment Nathan had warned me about. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. "What do you want?" The man didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, his eyes hidden behind the dark lenses. I could feel his gaze piercing through me like he was waiting for something, waiting for me to say the wrong thing. "You need to leave," he said again, his voice colder this time. "It's too dangerous for you. Your husband isn't who you think he is." I felt the ground shift beneath me. My heart stopped in my chest. What did he mean by that? "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling now. "What do you know about Nathan?" The man smirked, leaning out of the window slightly. "You think you know everything, don't you? You don't know the half of it. He's involved in things much bigger than you understand. He's not who he seems to be, but it's too late for you, too late for all of us." His words hit me like a slap. I didn't understand. What was he talking about? "Get in the car," the man said, his tone flat. "We can end this quietly, or we can do this the hard way." I stood frozen, unable to move. My thoughts were a jumbled mess. What was happening? Who were these people? Why had they taken Nathan? What had he gotten involved in? The man sighed, clearly frustrated by my hesitation. "Fine, have it your way." Before I could react, he reached for something in the car, and before I knew it, the world around me blurred. Everything went black.